Story 1. My dad wrote my grandpa a letter before he died and kept it in his toolbox in our garage. It contained many family secrets that my dad called him out on. No one knows about that letter, not even my mom. I found it after my dad passed away, under a drawer liner in his large toolbox. I've kept it and read it once in a while to remind myself of things and maintain a clear understanding of certain people in my family. I appreciate the interest from everyone, and given the anonymity that the internet offers, I will say that the most shocking thing I read in that letter was about the abuse my grandpa witnessed as a child, physical abuse against my grandma and my aunts. There was also mention of the mistress my grandpa had, which my dad found out about as a teenager through a friend at school who saw my grandpa at his neighbor's house often, and the potential but unconfirmed half-brother my dad might have. It may not sound overly shocking, but you must understand that throughout my childhood, my grandfather was portrayed as a sort of Superman, a World War II veteran and a respectable man who could do no wrong, serving as a hero and role model to us. However, the truth is that he was abusive and instilled fear in his family, showing little regard for being a good father or husband. The most astonishing aspect of that letter was my dad telling him that he refused to continue the cycle and was determined to be a better man and father despite the hellish childhood he experienced. I loved and respected my dad and appreciate all the sacrifices he made to ensure my mom and I were happy, taking care of his two stepchildren from my mom's previous marriage as if they were his own. After reading that letter, my view of my father changed, and everything I thought my grandfather was, my dad embodied tenfold. However, knowing that my dad was still too scared to confront an elderly man on his deathbed about these things says a lot about the person my grandfather was and how my dad chose to protect his mother and siblings from painful truths to avoid breaking their hearts and tearing the family apart. Beyond the abuse, there were allegations of incest, rape, and various forms of debauchery involving cousins, aunts, and uncles. Once I read that, I began to piece together information about other extended family members, and many realizations started to dawn on me. I've debated whether to show my mother the letter. As my dad's spouse, she likely knows things that may or may not be in there. I'm hesitant to talk to her because I don't know if it will really change anything or what good it would do. It might dredge up bad memories or create awkwardness. For now, I've chosen to leave it alone. Story 2. I went from having no tattoos to getting almost my entire body covered in tattoos in a very short time. Everyone thinks I'm suddenly really into tattoos. But in reality, my tattoos represent an elaborate escape plan to help free my brother, who was wrongfully accused of murder and now sits on death row. Please don't tell anyone. Story 3. I'm certain I am bisexual, but at this stage in my life, it doesn't seem like there is any reason to come out to anyone. Story 4. I dislike my country and want to leave as quickly as possible. However, if I express this to someone, they may dislike me for it. Story 5. My brother had a pet rat when I was a child, and one day it died, which made everyone sad. What they do not know is that I accidentally bumped into its cage, causing the water bottle to fall on him, which led to his death. Story 6. When I was in first grade, a boy had a crush on me and would harass me almost daily. At one point, I had to kick him away because apparently wearing a pink shirt with hearts on it on Valentine's Day meant I wanted to kiss him. The teacher at the time would switch our seats during tests. Once I was placed in his assigned seat. I drew all over the table with whiteout and framed him for it. I wasn't even considered a suspect when the teacher found the mess. Poor kid. Story 7. I once experienced uncontrollable diarrhea while driving at night during the winter. I had to pull over and empty my bowels into the snow, wipe myself with snow, and then struggle to get my car out of the snow where I had parked in a panic without paying attention. Story 8. I once convinced my first girlfriend that I was a secret agent. She even thought I had missions when I was just going to buy snacks. Story 9. I am a teenager, and I stopped taking my antidepressants a couple of years ago. I gradually tapered off them myself because I felt good after a few months of taking them. In retrospect, it was not a smart decision, but I was younger and did not fully understand. Anyway, it worked, and I believe I am still happy years later. I am definitely not depressed like I was before I started taking the medication, but I occasionally wonder if it might make me a bit more stable. I do not think they would prescribe me antidepressants given how I am right now, but I remember feeling more depressed than I realized after coming out of that dark place. so perhaps it would still help me. I am not sure how to get them to stop prescribing me these medications. I do not want to approach my psychiatrist and say, I stopped taking these years ago, because I doubt she would trust me. She might think I stopped only recently and could be at risk, and then she would inform my parents, leading to a complicated situation. Story 10. Not sure if that counts as a secret, but my ex-girlfriend was physically abusive. I couldn't tell anyone because I felt that I was the man. Story 11. I have my mother's diaries from when she was a teenager. They were in a box with memorabilia my father gave me after their divorce. She got pregnant and had an abortion at 17. She doesn't know, and I never plan on telling her. Story 12. Why don't you have a girlfriend? My family asks, because I feel anxious around everyone. Right when I turned 40, my anxiety intensified. It's a struggle just to say hello to people. I have trouble texting or calling my closest friends. I usually tell those nosy individuals that I'm not interested in dating since I broke up with my ex. But in reality, I am interested. I just can't, as that would involve talking to and interacting with people which my anxious mind deems unacceptable. Story 13. I lied to my mother about a date with a guy I met online. I told her I was going to see a friend. She is very strict and protective of me, and I knew she would never agree. Sometimes, I wish I could tell her the truth, but I fear she would not believe me about anything. Story 14. I have a crush on a friend that will never be returned, which is fine. But I can't help but feel jealous of their most recent ex and the person they are vaguely considering next. There were many valid complaints about the last one, and I know there will be complaints about the new one if they choose to date him. They went on endlessly about how they weren't even attracted to him and how he is not well endowed. If they were going to start seeing a friend, it would be our other friend and not me. So I'm just chilling and trying to remind myself it's okay that friendship is all they want from me. I genuinely love being friends with them and wouldn't ever want to ruin that. Story 15. I don't like owning a dog now that I have children. I still love the dog, care for her, play with her, and meet her needs. I just don't find any pleasure in it anymore. After working and caring for 2 young children, my energy is depleted. Then I have to give from an empty cup to care for the dog. I will continue to care for her until the end of her life, but I am ready to be dog-free. Story 16. I am slipping further into my drug addiction, and many of my friends are aware of my struggles, but they do not know how severe it has been recently. I am truly struggling, and I know my friends want to help. They would assist me if I asked, but I do not truly want help. I do not want them to feel helpless if I confide in them about my struggles and then refuse to listen to their advice, as I know I would do that. Story 17. I attended a fairly upper-middle-class high school. I was on the poorer end of the spectrum and struggled with a significant keeping up with the Joneses complex. During dress rehearsals and shows, I would go into the dressing rooms and take money from people's wallets and purses. They referred to me as the theater thief, but no one ever discovered my identity. Over 3 years, I easily stole more than $1,000. Story 18. When I was 4, I met a girl in preschool church. I asked her if she wanted to be my friend, and she said, okay. I still vividly remember that interaction. We both attended the same church for many years, going through elementary Sunday school together. She was definitely one of my best friends. We could talk and play for hours. Then one day, when we were 9, she told me she was moving away, and soon after, she was gone. I missed her a lot after that. About a year later, while I was in church, I suddenly felt a tap on my shoulder. It was her. We were both excited to see each other. She was back for that day because she was helping her grandma move, and her family decided to stop by the church since they were in the area. The room we were in was crowded that day. Thankfully, the 4th and 5th grade classes had 2 rooms. The other room was hardly used, and we weren't supposed to go in there without a leader, but we snuck out to the empty room anyway. There, we played and talked just like we always did. We did rubber band art on a board while catching up. As we talked, I became more jittery. It was the first time I realized I loved her, and it was the first time I realized I loved anyone. She had to leave again, though, which felt bittersweet. I hoped I would see her again one day, The only contact I received afterward was a letter from her as we were about to graduate elementary. I sent a letter back to her a few months later when middle school started, but I didn't hear anything back. It was the last contact I had for years. She never visited again, even though I clung to some hope. When I was 14, I had a math tutor who was great and changed how I viewed math. Coincidentally, she was related to my friend. She was engaged to my friend's much older brother. After finding that out, I felt hopeful I would see her again. This continued for another 2 years until I was 16. For some reason, this girl was really on my mind again and wouldn't go away. Eventually, I realized I could try sending her another letter. I searched for the letter she sent me years ago but couldn't find it. I looked all over my room and my parents' room, but no luck. In the end, I looked up her name online. I found the high school she attended since she was in a competitive sports team. I did more digging and found no social media for her, only an inactive Pinterest account that matched her name and involvements. Eventually, I found social media for her family members. After looking around, I found one person who had pictures of someone resembling my friend. I conducted a public records search on the man's name to figure out his address, and he lived right next to the high school I knew my friend was attending. I had rediscovered where she lived. I sent a letter to her using the address I found, and a couple of months later, I received a letter back from her. I never told her about the ethically questionable steps I took to reach out to her again. I just mentioned that I found the old letter she sent me. I also haven't shared this with anyone else. I didn't want to seem creepy. My only intention was to talk casually with her again. I was never going to be inappropriate. Anyway, she attached her phone number to the new letter, and we've kept in touch for the past 2 years. My next goal was for us to meet up in person again. Thankfully, we were both interested in the same college, allowing us to meet on a tour day. Last October, it finally happened, and I saw her for the first time in 7 years. I had an idea of how things would go, but it didn't unfold that way. She brought 2 of her other friends from high school with her to the college tour. We talked a little when her friends weren't around, but most of the time, I was left on my own. It's not that we didn't still enjoy each other's company, but I misjudged the dynamic we had. I don't hold any of it against her. I would probably find it easier to talk with friends I've known for years than with a friend I hadn't seen in 7 years. Ultimately, I think what happened is that I learned to let go a little. Everything aligned to bring us back together, not to lay the foundation for a relationship in college, but so I could understand the difference that nearly 8 years made in both of us and how we've changed. The girl I loved when I was 10 is gone now, but it's for the better. That was hard to accept at first, but I've come to terms with it. I'm incredibly thankful that the whole ordeal didn't make me bitter. I still contact her occasionally to keep up, and I will for as long as I can, but I think I realize that I need to keep her as a friend now. I've gone through this whole arc for almost my entire life, and I haven't told anyone about it, at least not how deep it really goes for me. This is genuinely an experience I think will stay with me my whole life. Story 19. When I was 18, I hit and killed a dog one night while driving my friends around for a ride. I wanted so badly to stop and inform the owners, but I was under the influence and had marijuana in the car. This was back in the early 2000s when marijuana was still very much illegal in my state. I dropped my friends off shortly afterward and cried for the rest of the night. To this day, those 2 friends are the only people who know about it. It has haunted me for years, as I am a lover of all animals, especially dogs. I have 2 rescue chihuahuas, and my third one recently had to be put down at age 15. In my defense, the dog wasn't leashed, and it was a back road with very poor lighting around 10 p.m. It was also on a blind corner. Even still, I was being careless, and it should never have happened. Story 20. When I was 5, I woke up one morning to my parents fighting, which had never happened before. I crept downstairs and heard my dad say, "Forget it, I'm leaving." I interpreted leaving as going away for good, and I immediately started crying and begging him not to go. They both remember that night, but have no idea I thought my dad was going to leave us. Story 21. I enjoy seeing fish taken out of the water during my childhood, but I once accidentally killed my brother's favorite fish. Story 22. I had a relationship with my third-degree cousin, but to be fair, we didn't know we were related. I recognized him in one of our family photos and reached out to him, and we promised not to tell anyone. Story 23. I found a letter my mom wrote to her dad but never gave him. It provided me with valuable insight into my mom's personality, insecurities, and traumas. I was in high school when I found the letter. Now in my mid-40s, she marvels at how well I understand her and how accurate my advice is. She has no idea I have been studying her my whole life to help her as much as I can. I love her very much. Story 24. I made several mistakes when I took out a loan of around $30,000. It was unwise, and I still struggle to save money despite having a better salary because I need to pay it back. As a result, I am always in a negative financial position. Story 25. I was stalked and blackmailed by someone I worked with, a person with psychopathic tendencies, and I was too scared to ask for help until the situation escalated. It destroyed my life. I have since learned that the response of trying not to upset anyone, acting as if everything is normal, and sweeping issues under the rug is a result of childhood trauma. Story 26. I have friends who smoke, and they offer me some to try with them. However, I can't because I used to be in a relationship with someone who would drug me and try various substances. This makes smoking or using any drugs triggering for me. I simply tell them I can't due to health issues. Story 27. I despise my grandpa. He was never there when I was young. He went traveling instead to cope with his alcoholism after grandma left him. Now I only visit him during birthdays and some holidays. I have more memories with my grandma's partner. I see him more as a grandpa than my biological one ever was. When I see him, he only talks critically about my generation and our smartphone addiction, criticizes my tattoos, or nags about something. I keep this a secret from some family members since they think he's changed, but I believe it is only because he is too frail to travel now, which made him realize that he has a family to care about. Story 28. I secretly still love a man from my past while I just confess to another guy. I love them both so much at the same time, and I can't let either of them go. The worst part is that they know each other. Story 29. I used to do OnlyFans and make $600,000 per year. I stopped because someone recognized me and showed up at the church I used to attend. They even approached me and introduced themselves by calling me the name I used on the platform. No way, I'm out. Story 30. I pretend to like the people who are overly enthusiastic about their beliefs because I am benefiting from their services. They think I care about their agenda, their opinions, and their personal lives. It frustrates me to be so insincere, but I am making a profit. Story 31. I don't think there's a single thing that at least one other person doesn't know about me. My mom knows many of my secrets. My cousin and I did a lot of foolish things as kids, but he knows as well. Story 32. I've never had a love life because of my complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which was caused by childhood abuse. Also, I feel inadequate and don't want anyone to see me. Story 33. Grandpa definitely excluded someone from his will, but they will never know because we contributed and gave them a share of the inheritance. Story 34. I committed a felony while feeling very depressed, partially hoping that going to prison would allow me to escape my problems. I was never caught, and at this point, it seems unlikely to happen. That said, my life has dramatically improved since then, and now I can't believe I was so reckless. I occasionally wonder how many other crimes go unnoticed and are never investigated. Story 35. The truth of how I healed will always be the most cherished moment of my life. It is something I will keep close to my heart forever. A potion of happiness I will savor in moments of solitude. Story 36. I slept with my client to secure a tender. She is like a 6 out of 10, and I would say I am a 7 out of 10, so I was not initially interested. However, I did it to make her happy and specify my mechanical equipment in a tender submission. I had a girlfriend of 3 years. She was married throughout that time. We used to be intimate right after discussing my mechanical equipment specifications, which is technically not legal, especially if you are engaging with someone to win contracts, similar to being a male escort. Both of us were cheating, my girlfriend and her husband. The situation worsened. We never used protection, which I am notoriously known for, especially after having been with many partners in Cape Town. Now, since she was married and not on any contraception, she seriously asked me not to ejaculate inside her. Normally, I would agree, but I didn't care. I usually did not hold back as it is a personal preference of mine. However, because she was my client, I couldn't upset her. After having intimate relations once a week for 2 months, she was shockingly diagnosed with breast cancer. She started chemotherapy, which caused her hair to fall out and made her feel sick. One day, she called me and said she wanted to be intimate one last time before her hair was completely gone and before she looked ill. Her husband was nursing her during this challenging time. When I arrived at her house, she looked weak and frail, and I could see that her hair was very thin. She insisted we could be intimate one last time. I agreed, and then she mentioned that due to the chemotherapy and the frequent treatments she had to undergo, she surprisingly asked me to ejaculate inside her, as we had both always wanted to, but I had hesitated because of her marriage. She mounted me, and the thought of the situation was shocking. I had never heard of someone being intimate with a cancer patient, especially one undergoing chemotherapy and nearly bald. She rode me, and I couldn't believe that this was happening. Then it happened. I lost control and ejaculated inside her. It was an overwhelming experience. In my opinion, this was one of the most extreme situations I could imagine. Being intimate with a married woman's wife, particularly while she was a cancer patient undergoing chemotherapy. I bet there are very few people who have cheated with a married woman who was deteriorating from cancer treatment. It was intense, and I will never forget that day. I was somewhat scared that all those toxins could impact me, but it was worth it. So yes, being intimate with a cancer patient is perhaps the most extreme sexual experience one could have. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.